Sammy grew up in a loving home in Malibu, and like a lot of teenagers, she went through a party phase. Except hers never ended, it just kept progressing. She spent her 21st birthday in rehab, but the sobriety didn't stick. From there, she ended up living on the streets, addicted to fentanyl and cycling in and out of rehabs and jail. Now, she's 10 months sober and passionate about sharing her story to help others. In this conversation, she was incredibly candid, from the hardest parts of living on the streets to the truth about what it took to finally get sober. By the end of this episode, I hope you're left with more compassion, more understanding, and more gratitude for the little things. And now, here's my conversation with Sammy. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of What It's Really Like with me, your host, Molly Burke. I am very excited to bring today's guest on because this is a conversation we haven't been able to have on the podcast yet, but one that I've definitely been really interested to delve into. Today, we have Sammy Carroll with us, and for those who don't know, who is Sammy?
I'm Sammy. I am an alcoholic, but I don't drink alcohol, so I'm a drug addict, but I do AA, so I say I'm an alcoholic. I'm a previously homeless fentanyl addict who is now sober, and I'm just trying to bring awareness to people online to say to inspire them, no matter how far down you've gone, you can always get back up.
You have such an interesting story because you grew up in Malibu, and then you ended up on the streets of LA.
Yeah.
And I don't think that when we see homeless people, when we see addicts, I don't think we think of the background that you came from.
Yeah, no one really does. And I was just talking to my boyfriend about this on the way. A lot of people are like, oh, you have rich parents. How did you end up homeless? Or you have rich parents, that's why you're sober. That's not true at all. I always say addiction does not discriminate. It can catch anybody at any time. You can grow up in the hood and you can become a lawyer, or you can grow up in the hood and you can become a drug addict. You can grow up in Malibu, you can become a drug addict, or you can grow up in the Malibu and become a lawyer. It doesn't matter. It's not about your circumstances. It's just I don't know. It just can happen. And it's a disease. Yeah. It's a full-on disease. I fully believe that. And I didn't believe that when I was younger, but now I totally do. With all of the rehabs I've went to and all of the doctors and all of the lectures and all of that, it's a full disease. It's a different kind of disease, though. It's not because you do have a choice in the beginning. But once you're hooked on it, you're hooked on it.
And the thing is, nobody knows who they're going to be when they use for the first time.
Oh my God.
When they try a substance for the first time, nobody knows, will I be the one that gets addicted, or will I be the person who can use it casually at a party?
Yeah,
and
right.
I'll be fine.
Of course. No one ever dreams of being a homeless drug addict. I certainly didn't. I was a crazy person pushing a shopping cart homeless. I went to modern day high school. I was raised really well, whatever. And then I became a gnarly drug addict on the streets. It took everything from me. And I never thought that would be me ever. Even when I started doing heroin, I was like, oh, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. And it wasn't I didn't have anything traumatic happen to me as a child. A lot of drug addicts have, or a lot of people with addiction have something that they were running away from or trying to cover up, a traumatic experience that happened to them as a child. I didn't have any of that. So it's a little bit unique. It's a little bit different just because I wasn't trying to hide or run from anything. I just was curious and I just wanted to do drugs and I did them and then I became addicted to them, hardcore.
But that's what's so important about your story. And that's why stories like yours need to be told, because there is so much stigma around homelessness, around addiction.
Yeah.
And we have such a specific view of it. And you kind of break a lot of those stereotypes and show that truly it can be any of us. And I think it's so important that we have empathy and compassion. And that's why I want to dig into your story a bit more to build more empathy and understanding for something that many of us might not have ever been impacted by. I personally don't have anybody close in my life who's dealt with addiction, and I view that as a privilege.
Really?
And I've never had anybody close in my life deal with homelessness. And again, I view that as such a huge privilege. So for me, it's so important to have these kind of conversations to learn and build understanding and compassion. And I want to go back to your childhood before you got a hold of drugs and before they got a hold of your life. What was your childhood like?
My childhood was amazing. I mean, it was perfect. Like, I am the oldest of 3. And then I have a brother who's adopted, but he wasn't adopted till I was 15 and he was 16. So it was me, my sister, my brother. My dad's an attorney and my mom's like a stay-at-home mom, and I got everything I ever wanted. We went on vacations. I went to private schools. I had like the best childhood ever. Like I'm super close with my siblings, or I was super close with them when I was younger, and then we had a little bit of a thing and now we're good again. But yeah, my childhood was awesome. It was great, but my parents are both alcoholics. So it's definitely a genetic thing. It's definitely passed down. And I grew up with them drinking every night, thinking that that's normal. Like they would drink a bottle of wine, 2 bottles of wine every night. And I just thought, oh, that's just what parents do. My dad would come from work, he would drink, my mom would drink. And then my mom later on, it got worse. Like when we all moved out of the house, it got worse. But I just remember just seeing adults and all their friends too. They would all drink every single night. And I was like, oh, that's normal. It's normal.
I also grew up in a pretty wealthy circle. I definitely saw a similar lifestyle in that I saw my friends' parents, with scotch and whiskey collections and drinking every single night and throwing fancy parties with open bars and a bartender. And it was very normalized.
Yeah, we had a wine cellar in my house. And it was like a cold, like it's something lower degrees than the normal house you walked in. It was like a refrigerator. But like when I got to high school, I would steal bottles of wine. I would look for the one that like the cap that had the most in there. And I would take a couple of those because I just think that they wouldn't notice. And they never did notice.
And I think that was what I saw a lot when I briefly went to a private school. And I saw a lot of my peers, their parents were so busy making all this money that they like weren't even noticing these behaviors starting, which was very interesting. And I think in society we look at like wealthy people drinking champagne and having a nice bottle of wine every night as being very different from somebody who chugs vodka out of a paper bag. But at the end of the day, like it's the same addiction and it's the same problem and it can ruin your life in the same ways.
Right.
So at what point did you start experimenting? And was it alcohol, I would assume, or weed? I feel like those are the first, as teenagers at least, the first kind of steps that a lot of people take.
When I was probably 13, I poured myself like a bottle of Patron, like a half cup of Patron. I was at my neighbor's house and they were all in high school and I was in middle school, but it was like my neighborhood. And I just remember chugging it, walking home, falling asleep on my front lawn, like passing out on my front lawn. And I can't remember if my dad or my mom found me, whatever. And then shortly after that, I started smoking weed. And then when I got into high school, I started doing Xanax, cocaine, ecstasy, acid, all of those drugs. And I don't know if it's normal for I look at a 14-year-old kid now and I'm like, they're babies. But I was doing, I guess hard drugs, but I don't consider them hard drugs because I ended up on fentanyl and meth. But back then, it was kind of like I would go to school.
I think the average person would consider those.
Yeah. I would take Xanax at school, like 2 Xanax bars, and then I would like do an assignment in class, and I would come back a couple weeks later, and the teacher would hand it back to me, and I'm like, I don't even remember writing this. I was a terrible student because of that. And my parents, my dad is like the best dad in the whole world. Like I'll get into more stories about him later because he's a big part of my life. But like he and my mom like realized like, Sammy, you're not doing good in school. Like let's send you to therapy. And I didn't want to go to therapy. For some reason, therapy to me was like, I just, that was like the enemy. I was like, my mom was driving me to a therapy session and I was like screaming, crying in the car. Like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't know why. I just like therapy to me was like, you had to have a really big problem to go to therapy. So they would send me to therapy. They would get me tutors, whatever. But the thing when I look back on is my brother and sister were really good students. like naturally by themselves. And I just needed help. I needed more help. I needed my mom to like sit down with me and say like, did you do your homework? Like, let's see. And I just didn't care about school. It's not that I'm not smart or I didn't have potential. I just didn't care about it. So I barely graduated high school. And I got put on like probation at Mater Dei because I failed a drug test. And then, this is a story that I've never told anyone. So my sister, my younger sister, we went to Mater Dei and they would randomly drug test me at school. So I would tell her in the morning, Madison, pee for me in this bottle and I'll bring it to school with me just in case I get drug tested because you're not on drugs, I'm on drugs. And she would do it for me every single day.
Wow.
I know.
Did the school drug test you because people were aware that you were?
No. I don't know. But I know that for like most private Catholic schools, they can just randomly drug test you. And I got pulled in for a random, maybe it wasn't, now that you're saying it, I don't know. But like I had a pretty bad reputation, like party girl, whatever. So maybe it wasn't random, but that's what they told me. This is random. We're pulling random kids for drug tests. And then I failed it. And then they're like, now you're on probation. We drug test you once a month randomly. So I would bring my sister's pee with me every single day to school.
I'm just imagining storing somebody's pee in my locker at school.
I wouldn't even store it in my locker. I would tape it to the inside of my leg because
to keep it warm.
And then when I would go in, because when they come get you, security comes and gets you. So you don't have time to go to your locker just in case you're doing something like that. So I would just tape it. I would put it in a prescription bottle and I would tighten it and I would tape it to the inside of my leg.
I feel like just knowing to do that as a high schooler shows how intelligent you are because I feel like most people wouldn't even their brains wouldn't even go there. I'm curious the first time you tried something harder than alcohol or weed. Was there anything in you that said I shouldn't do this or that felt scared? Because I know for me, I went through a party phase in high school and I remember there being a lot of drugs around me. All of my friends smoked cigarettes and I could never touch anything. Not even weed
scared.
Because I was so scared. I was so fearful. My friends thought it was funny to try to put cigarettes up to my mouth when I was drunk and try to make me take a puff. And I just wouldn't. I would just zip my lips shut and pull my head away because I was just so scared to do anything other than drink alcohol. That was the only thing to me that felt safe. So thinking of somebody of a similar age being I'll do Xanax and I'll do M and I'll all of these things, what did you think when you were trying those things?
There was definitely no fear. Definitely fearless about it. I just thought, I had a lot of friends that would do it, first, I guess. And I would see that they were having fun or whatever. They looked like they felt good. And so I was like, fuck it, let's go. I just didn't, there was no fear. Definitely no fear. Definitely no, I'm scared to do that because I don't know what the fear would that you were going to die or that you were going to, what was your fear?
Well, I think for me, part of it is not being able to see. It felt like adding any extra thing. I felt like with alcohol, I can drink slowly and I can build the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But with taking another substance, I felt like all of a sudden, it might just hit you. The way I was seeing it happen to my friends.
Right.
They would take something and 30 minutes later, it's just, it's a go time.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that idea of not being able to moderate it myself and slowly build to the feeling I was seeking.
That's actually an important point that you've made because every time that I do heroin or fentanyl, I always I shot heroin for 10 years. I would always make it myself just so I could see how much was in there. If you can't do that yourself, you don't know how much someone's giving you. So I understand that fear. But the first time I took a Xanax and I smoked weed and I went to a breakfast spot and I was eating biscuits and gravy or something and it just felt so good and I was so happy. But that's only the first time that you really do drugs. And then every other time you're kind of chasing that first time. It's never really the same, but then you become physically addicted to it. And
I think that was another part of my fear was the idea of addiction because I didn't know anybody.
I didn't know anything about addiction. No one ever educated on me. We had DARE come to our school and I remember him talking about heroin. I was like, I want to try that. It wasn't a really scary education, don't do drugs. because you can get addicted, you can come home. Like, I never knew any of that. I never knew what addiction was. I really didn't. I really like think back on it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anyone that was I just didn't know.
That's so interesting. I think because I was aware and I didn't know anybody who had experienced it. And so the only version I knew was the extreme scary version.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if there's any chance that taking this could lead to that, I don't want to take the chance. And I think I also, as somebody who struggled a lot with mental health, for some reason, I've always been the type of person who like researches everything. Like I always want to know before I buy a lip gloss, what's the best lip gloss? I'll do all the research to find the right one to buy. And I remember when I was in school and people were starting to experiment with MDMA and ecstasy, like them saying like, oh, it's around. If it's there if you want it. And I looked up, what would it feel like? How long does it last? What's the come down? And every time I would look that stuff up, it would be like, you'll feel super depressed when you come down.
The horror stories of it, right. I mean,
I was
true,
like, oh, okay, no, that's not where I have enough depression on my own. I don't need to give myself any. So I think I just always like was so aware of all the bad that no good felt like it would be worth it. So it's interesting that you were just so unaware of the bad that you were only seeing the good. So
I
you
was
had the opposite.
so unaware of it that in fact, when I started shooting heroin and I was doing it for like, I don't know, like a couple weeks straight every single day. And the reason why I switched to heroin is because I was doing pills like Oxycontins. Back in the day, they had these things called Oxy 80s. They don't make them anymore, but I was paying cash for them. And I was in high school. I didn't have a job. Like I was taking money from my parents and I couldn't afford them anymore. So then I switched to black tar heroin. And I was doing it for like 14 days straight. And then one day I just didn't get it. I was just like, I'm going to go to the beach with my friends. I'll get it later. And I was in the ocean and I started to feel sick. What now I realize is dope sick. And I didn't know that was even what was happening. And I got out of the ocean. I told my friend, like, I feel like I feel like I'm going to throw up. I feel whatever. And she's like, do you want an oxy? I was like, that's going to make me feel worse. Like, and she's like, no, I promise. And I took it and I felt better. And I was like, oh my God, I'm physically addicted to this drug now. Like, that's how unaware of it I was. I didn't even know that was a thing, that could even happen.
When you graduated to heroin, like that's a big step, right? Like, as you said, like there's a certain point when you went from doing drugs that you saw as like normal to doing hard drugs. That's a big step to take. Did you have friends who were also taking that step with you? Or was that like just alone? That was something you...
No, I had friends that were taking that step with me, but the thing is like the bigger step for me was when I stopped taking pills orally and I started smoking them on foil. That was like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, so when I started smoking the pills, I was like, I might as well just smoke the heroin because it's the same thing. But then the first time that I smoked heroin, and then this was another big step. The first time I smoked heroin, it just tastes so bad. Black tar heroin tastes so disgusting. And the circle that I was in someone's car in my high school. There was a kid that was shooting it. And I thought to myself, if I was in the hospital and they were administering this drug to me, that's how they would do it. So then I asked him to teach me how to shoot up, and he did. And from that day on, for like 10 years, I shot heroin.
You must have never been afraid of needles then.
Never.
Okay, I grew up with the like most horrifying fear of getting a needle.
Yeah, a lot of people say that, but never.
Wow, it seems like such a big leap to take at such a young age.
I was 16 when I started doing heroin.
Wow.
I look at a 16-year-old now, I don't even think they should be able to drive.
Yeah,
it's so young.
That's kind of right around the age I started partying, was 16.
Yeah.
So the idea that I started like drinking when you started shooting heroin is crazy, because I think now, like, wow, I was young to be partying. But, I grew up where drinking was legal at like 18, 19. So like 16 feels like, oh, it's not that far off.
Yeah.
But 16 is just so young.
And I didn't get sober until I was 32. So it was a long, long, long time.
Long road to get to where you are today. At what point did your family start to notice that something was going on? Something more serious than just our teenage girl likes to party?
I spoke at a meeting the other night and my little brother was there, and I kind of looked at him for like confirmation about this because I can't really remember. I don't remember. I just remember the first intervention that I had. I was probably like 21, I think. maybe 19, 20. No, I was 20. I was 20 because I turned 21 in rehab. So I was 20 years old and I had an intervention. And now I'm 33. I've had millions and millions of interventions, but this was my first one. So for those of you guys who don't know, an intervention is when someone is hired, like a specialist is hired, they come into your home and all your family's there and they all read you a letter of like, oh, well, you used to be this and da-da-da, and you need to get help and blah, blah, blah. And it's sad and it's compelling when it's your first one and you're kind of like a young kid with no other choice. I remember I got to the rehab and they're like, oh no, you have a choice. You don't have to be here. And I'm like, my other choice is homelessness. Do you really think that's a real choice? Later on, I would make that choice. But like, so when you're young and you're hearing all of your family say this and everything, it's like, okay, well, I'll go to rehab. I mean, I don't really want to go and I don't really think I need to go, but I'll go. So that was the first time I really remember them noticing. I mean, I don't know. I think maybe they might have noticed in high school, but they wanted me to graduate high school so badly. So then once I graduated high school and I got into college, which was like, no one thought I was going to get into college. So then I went to college. I went to University of Arizona for like a year and then I got kicked out because of paraphernalia in my dorm room. And so I think that they were just so focused on my education and wanting me to get, the milestones of like graduating high school and then going to college that they were kind of, I don't know if ignoring it is the right word, but kind of like, it's a phase. She'll get over it. She'll get over it.
And for them, like probably not realizing the severity or not realizing.
Yes, exactly. Not realizing I was shooting heroin, not realizing I was even doing heroin. Like they would find little like pipes. My mom's like, you're smoking weed out of this, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm smoking weed out of that.
Well, when it comes to drugs, right? Like if you've never done them and you don't know anybody who has, I can imagine it's hard to realize the warning signs.
Totally.
Or to even look at paraphernalia and know exactly what that is.
Yes.
If you've never been around it.
Yes.
So I can imagine your mom looking at a pipe and in her head, that's just used for weed.
Yeah.
Because that's the only thing she's ever seen it be done or used for.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you know it was a problem? Like beyond that first day when you're like, wait, I might be physically addicted. When was the point where you were like, oh, this is actually like truly impacting my life?
I didn't really come to terms with that until I was homeless on the streets. Because up until then, I always had like a safety net or like I was always able to go to rehab. Like I was on my parents' insurance. Like I could just call and like I was like, oh, this is fine. This is fine. And I never really even wanted to stop until I was homeless on the street, living outside. I was like, well, all right, this is a fucking issue. And then also one time before that, I was like 22 probably. Actually, this is probably the time. When I was homeless, it was obviously a problem. But like when you're shooting heroin, it's not like a recreational thing. It's like obviously a problem. But like when I noticed like I can't stop anymore is... So I was like 22 and I was living in an apartment in Malibu and I had gone to jail for the first time like a month before that. And my parents were really mad at me. They stopped talking to me. And then they invited me on a vacation to Mexico with them. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I want to go. I haven't been on a vacation with you guys in so long. Like, let's go. So we get down to Mexico and I didn't bring any drugs with me because I didn't know you could travel. Now I'm hip to it. Like I know how to travel with drugs, but back then I didn't. So I get to Mexico. I didn't bring any dope with me. And I start detoxing immediately. And it was Mother's Day. And I had to get rushed to the hospital down there. And they gave me liquid Valium, which I never even heard of, and I drank it all, and I spent like $3,000 at the gift shop. I was eating paper at the dinner table. I was just making a fool of myself. And then my parents pulled me outside, and they're like, Sammy, you need help, don't you? And I was like, yes, I do. I've just been too proud to tell you guys whatever. And my dad's like, okay, we're going to take you home. We're going to take you to rehab. I was like, okay, but the only thing is I want to see my boyfriend and my dog before we go to rehab. That wasn't true. I just wanted to get high before I went to rehab. So we landed and I texted my boyfriend, like, come bring me a shot. Like, we'll follow my dad to the rehab. So we meet him at a gas station. As soon as I get in my car, I remember grabbing my dog's leash, tying it off, doing the shot. Like, and I was in Mexico for 4 days on no heroin. So I was clean for 4 days. I was taking the Valium, but I wasn't on heroin. So that's like a rookie mistake, I call it, is when you're clean for a little bit and then you do the same amount that you've done the whole time. So I do like a full gram shot of heroin And the next thing I know is I'm waking up in the hospital with a thing over my mouth with fluorescent lights and white coats all around me hearing, she has a pulse, she has a pulse. And I start screaming and they're like, oh, you can't scream. And I'm like, well, can I cry? And they're like, yeah, you can cry, you can cry. And I was like, someone's sitting on my chest. They're like, no one's sitting on your chest. We just had to defibrillate you. And then my dad is sitting in the corner and his face is like purple, tears. And I look at him and I'm like, oh, Dad, everybody does this. Not even realizing that what he had just gone through. And then the first thing I did when I got out of the hospital was I got high. And my dad came to explain to me the story later on. And he said, Sammy, Trent called me and said that you had gone out. I took you from my car. I took you from your car. I put you in my car. At this point, your face was blue and your lips were black. And I was driving on the other side of the road and I was running red lights and I pull up to the hospital and I pull up to the abandoned side of the hospital. So I had to go in. I had to get an office rolly chair. I had to put you in it, which was very hard because at this point, your face was black and your neck was blue and you were dead weight. And if there's any time that a parent can carry their child, it's when they're dying. But you were so heavy. So I put you in the office rolly chair. I rolled you in the hospital and I said, help, my daughter, she's dying. And they got you in the room and you came back to life. And after that, when I didn't get sober, I was like, well, this is a problem. Like, I can't stop. Like, you would think that after your dad has seen you die in your dad's arms, you would like get your head out of your ass and like get sober, but I didn't. It took 10 more years after that.
Yeah, from your first overdose to getting sober
first overdose.
Is 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Tell me about going to jail for the first time.
So before that happened, I went to jail for the first time, but it wasn't like county jail. Like I got arrested and I went and I spent the night in jail, but at the time it was very scary because I was on my way to work. I don't even know how I had a job, but I had done a shot of heroin. I took a couple Somas and I took a couple Xanax and I was driving and I was so fucked up that I was like, I need to pull over. So I pulled over into this really wealthy neighborhood in Malibu called the Colony. And there's a security guard that drives around in there and he saw me and he was like, you got to go or I'm calling the police. And I guess I passed out or something, I don't know. And he called the police and the police showed up and I handed them everything in my glove box, including my kit where my drugs were. And he unzipped it and he remember he like elbowed his partner and he was like, look. And so then they're like, get up, put your hands behind your back. And there was an ambulance there at the same time. And they're like, you can either go to jail or you can go to the hospital. And I was like, I'll go to the hospital. So I get to the hospital and they handcuff me to the bed. And the cop is like, he just thinks I'm a piece of shit. Like he's yelling at me. He's telling me, shut the fuck up. Like you're under my jurisdiction, blah, blah, blah. Like it was brutal and it was really scary. And then I went to jail after that. And I was in like Lost Hills jail in Malibu for like not even 24 hours. My parents bailed me out and they got me out. But I remember being in there and I was freezing because jail's really cold and I was starving and I was thirsty and all that shit. But I remember just being like, I'm just going to get out of this. My dad's on his way. I called him. They gave me my own phone in there, which is like weird. But I kept calling my dad like, Dad, are you almost here, Dad? And they're like, Sammy, you have to sober up first before we can come get you. That's what the cop said. But we're on the way. So that was my first time I ever got arrested, but it wasn't county jail, which is a whole different thing.
And it sounds like, it was such a short stint and you were in and out. And
it was so short. I wouldn't even count it.
Yeah, like you didn't even, it almost doesn't even feel like it was a lesson for you. You just
not even close. As soon as I got out, my parents took me back to their house and I was like, I want to go back to my house. And I took back then there was no Uber. So I took like a cab back to my house and I got high immediately. I did not care. No, I did not learn a lesson at all.
So the cycle continues.
In fact, I got out of it. My dad, I got out of the DUI because they didn't pull me over. I pulled myself over. So yeah. So no lesson was learned.
You have your first OD a little after that. And at what point did it progress from I'm living this lifestyle, but I'm managing to still like have a home, have a partner, to we've gone over the edge? Like at that point, were you working a job or were you just an addict doing drugs all day? Like what did your life day to day look like?
At what point? When I got out of jail?
Before homelessness, but kind of.
Oh, like right before homelessness. So sometimes I would be in an apartment and I would just be doing drugs all day. Apartment paid for by my parents or my boyfriend's parents, not doing anything, just doing drugs all day and having to kind of hustle for the money, but not like hustle, like really just kind of like asking people for money or whatever. But then right before I became homeless, I was living in a beautiful apartment with my boyfriend who I met in rehab. And we were sober when we moved in and whatever. And then he brought drugs into the home. And I had a job at a rehab in Agora Hills or somewhere, Calabasas or something. And I had an overnight job. And then I also had a day job. And so I started doing drugs because he brought drugs in, not because he did, but he brought drugs in and I relapsed. And he was using. And I kept my job for like a year and a half, both jobs. And then I ended up stealing from both jobs, getting fired. And when he brought the drugs in, I remember looking at him and I was like, we're going to regret this decision forever. And he was like, why would you say that? And I was like, because we're about to lose everything. And it took longer than I thought it was, but we eventually lost everything. We lost the apartment. We moved into our car. And then I don't remember what happened with the car. It either broke down or we sold it for like $40, something crazy. And then we became homeless.
So there were stints in your life where you managed to be sober for certain periods.
Yeah. Like 6 months here, 9 months there. I one time got a year and we celebrated it. And then I don't remember how long I lasted after that. But yeah. So because my parents would always come in, rescue me, send me to rehab, I really think that that's what saved my life. Because if I was just on and running, I mean, you can say it both ways. Either they could have not done that and I would have hit my bottom faster and maybe gotten sober faster, or I would have died somewhere in the meantime. Because all of those little stints of sobriety, I believe they saved my life.
They bought you time.
They bought me time, yeah. And you learn something from every time you get sober. It's not like when you relapse, you've lost all of that recovery.
Each time is building on the previous time.
Yeah, I mean, you lose the date.
Right.
But you don't lose your knowledge. You don't lose your experience. You don't lose everything.
And the awareness that it's possible. I think.
Yes, and the experience of the good life. Because everybody that's sober without fail is much happier than they were in their addiction. I mean, that's pretty obvious. But like, it's not even comparable. Especially when you go down as far as being homeless on the street, addicted to fentanyl. I mean, that's as low as you could get, I think.
We certainly don't want to see anybody lower than that. That's
right.
For sure. So you had periods of managing to be sober. You had periods of managing to be a functioning addict in ways where you're still working, still maybe able to pull the wool over people's eyes.
Yeah, for a brief time. Like, I'll relapse and I'll be able to keep my job for like 6 months to a year. But then what ends up happening, I fuck up at work, I get high, whatever, something happens. But I can function for a little bit, not very long. Not very long.
So you and your partner are both addicted at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You've lost your jobs. You've sold everything. What was the first night being on the streets like for you?
I remember, so my parents had gotten us insurance when we were living in the car. And I went to rehab. We went to rehab and he got kicked out of the rehab. And I stayed because I was like, I want to be sober. And he left in the car. And then I was in the rehab for like a month. And when I got out, I remember calling him and he was like, I was like, where are you? Like, are you in rehab? Like, whatever. Because I was told that he was going to go to rehab too. But he never did. And he sold the car or broke down or something. And then he ended up in this encampment in the valley. And I remember I was in the rehab and I was like, oh my God, I need to come find you. So I went and found him in this encampment. And it was in a cul-de-sac, and it was probably like over 100 tents. Just like, I mean, we had electricity. It was like, and there was a lot of people there. And I remember like my first night, it was summertime, so it wasn't cold yet. But I remember I was sitting underneath a tent, and there was like dog shit everywhere and flies everywhere, and just like people passed out with foils next to them. And it was just really fucking real. And I remember sitting there being like, oh my God, like, I'm not going to stay here. Like, I'm going to go back to rehab, or I'm going to call, like, this is not me. And I had that mentality for like 2.5, 3 months. Like, he kept saying, we need to go get our own tent. We need to do this. And I'm like, no, we're not going to get our own tent. That means we've accepted this. That means we're homeless. Like, we're not doing that. I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm going to go to rehab. And my parents would come. Over that summer, they probably came 3 or 4 times. to find me, to put me in rehab. They would pay people in my encampment. Have you seen Samantha? Have you seen Samantha? Like, and my dad one time came and I was in my tent and it was the middle of summer. It was hot as fuck. And I remember seeing his truck come around and I was like, oh my God, we have to hide. I hid and he stood outside the tent. He didn't see me, but I remember this is going to make me cry. He stood outside the tent and he was like, Sammy, if you're in there, just know I'm here for you, honey. And if you need anything or if you want help, like I'm here. Like you don't want to live like this. And then he just drove away. It was really sad.
I can't even imagine being your parents or being your siblings, and that's why I said I feel like it's such a privilege to not have known somebody or loved somebody with addiction, because the pain of that, of watching your daughter go through that, just must be heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Like you can't imagine. It's so interesting that while actively homeless in this encampment, you were like not really thinking of yourself as homeless. Like you were like, I'm not like them. Like we're not going to get a tent and commit to this. We're not like this.
Mm-hmm.
Until eventually you had to accept that that's your reality.
Eventually it was like people were getting annoyed that I was staying in their tent all the time. Like I just needed, we needed our own space. So we went and stole a tent from REI or something and set it all up and everything. And then a lot of the time sanitation would come and you would have to clear out everything because they would have to clean the street or whatever. And then you just go right back. So every time we would do that, we'd have to go steal another tent. And then, so the first summer I was homeless, I needed to get money. And there's only a few things on the streets that you can do to get money. One of them is recycling, which is the only legal thing. Well, actually, there's two legal ways, but that's one of them. And so I would recycle every night. Like I would wake up, I would sleep in the day, and then I would wake up in 10 o'clock at night, and I would go around on my bike, and I would go to all the dumpsters, and I would recycle. And recycling is you make no money doing it, but it was enough for me at the time. And then what happened was the Mayor Bass came to our encampment and she moved everyone from the encampment into a Motel 6. And unfortunately that day I was not there. I was at the hospital or I was doing something. So I came back and everyone was gone and they were in the motel. And I remember going to the motel being like, do you guys have it? And they're like, oh no, we don't have any rooms left. And I was so bummed and I was so jealous because I've been only homeless for 3 months, but there was people out there for 10 years. And they were in their own room in Motel 6. They had their own bathroom, their own shower. I was like, oh my God, how the fuck did I miss this? Anyway, so after that happened, the encampment was gone. And then after that happened, it was really hard to put a tent up anywhere because cops would just come. And anytime, I always had warrants on the street. So I just avoided cops like the plague. So I wouldn't put a tent up because it was like an attraction for cops. So after the encampment went down, it was there for one summer. I was there for one summer. After that went away, I never had a tent after that. I would sleep on the sidewalk. I would sleep on the bus. I would sleep, in the park or whatever. And I moved up the street a little bit to the Orange Line in the valley. And we met this guy, and I can't say his name on here, but he taught us about boosting. And what boosting is you go into stores and you steal stuff and then you sell it for much less value of what it's worth. And so he taught us about that. And then that's when things started getting really bad. That's when I started going to jail all the time. That's when I started racking up charges. That's when my addiction became a $300 a day habit rather than a $20 a day habit because I could make more money.
The more money you can make, the more you can spend on the drugs, the more you can get high.
Yeah, the funny thing is I was talking to someone about this the other day. I would make $300 every day, and you think I ever spent that on a motel room? You think I ever spent that on food? No, I would only spend it on drugs and paraphernalia.
What was the hardest part about being homeless as a woman?
Well, I always had my boyfriend with me, so I never had to deal with, there was times when he was in jail and I was alone. But it's not like what you think, because the homeless community is, the hardest part for me as a homeless person, I don't know if this necessarily even has to do with my gender, but it's just the way people look at you and the way people treat you as just disgusting human being. It's really awful. Getting on the bus or going into a store and just being looked at and just either pitied or looked at with disgust or just really a lesser human, just really lesser than. And that's the hardest part for me is the feelings behind it. Not even the sleeping outside, not even the having to steal for my food. I mean, I can handle that. I'm pretty adaptable. I adapted to it pretty quick. But the feelings of like, and then also the jealousy that I would experience. Like I would be in West Hollywood and I would see like girls walking with their boyfriends to like a nice dinner and I'd be like, oh, like fuck, like that's never going to be me again. You know, like I had lost my teeth at that point. Like, so just the feelings around it, I think, are the hardest part. That was the hardest part for me.
The stigma that you
The
live
stigma.
with.
And then the cold, also the cold. I don't like the cold.
I can't, anytime it's raining or anytime it's cold.
The rain is awful too.
Just horrific. And growing up in Toronto and seeing homelessness in the winter and the snow.
Oh, God.
Just broke my heart. Like, I can't imagine what, for you, like, how did you survive moments like that? Like, we often see people trying to, like, bring stuff around for homeless people, socks and gloves and toothbrushes. And when people would give those things out, like, did you view that as helpful? How did that make you feel?
Yeah. I mean, of course I viewed it as helpful, but I never needed any of that stuff because I would just go steal all my own stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's helpful. I don't know. I just never felt like it was genuine. I felt like they were doing it more for themselves than for us. You know, I don't know why I felt that way. But like, I remember this one time I had just stolen a brand new outfit. I had brushed my hair and I was walking down the streets and I thought I looked like good, you know? And these two girls in like a nice car, like pretty young blonde girls pulled over and they're like, oh, we're passing out lunches. Do you want one? And I was like, fuck, I still look homeless as fuck. Like, really? And like, I got so mad about it, but I took the lunch because I was hungry. You know, I was like, all right, I'll take it. Like, it's fine. But yeah, I don't know. I would never go to like shelters or soup kitchens or like that. A lot of that's down on Skid Row. I would just never utilize that stuff because I never needed to. But so when people would come around like my hood and like drop stuff off, I just never felt like, I mean, there was sometimes when people would come like on Thanksgiving and they came with like a bunch of food and they gave it to us and it was like, that was cool. That I felt really, really appreciated when they did stuff like that. But just like, I don't know.
One of the things you hear people talk about a lot is that you shouldn't give a homeless person money, that you should bring them food or offer to buy them what they need but not give them money. What do you think about that?
I think, this is biased, but I think give them money. Because if you don't give them money, then they either have to go steal and sell something for money or they have to rob someone. They don't have to, but they will. They'll rob someone, they'll steal, they'll go sell it, they'll do something else. But if they're standing there with a sign asking for money, first of all, that's the most humbling thing you can do. I've done it like 3 times and it is so hard for me. And the other reason I don't do it is because you can't predict how much you're going to make. You can make $1, you can make $100. It just depends on who's there and who's generous and whatever. I say give them the money because they're going to get it somehow. We're determined motherfuckers. They're going to get it somehow. And if you don't give it to them, they're going to get it and they're going to get it through an illegal way. Like if they're asking, it's so humbling to do that. To go and ask someone, hey, do you have $1? I even for me, that was so hard for me to do. It was so hard for me to do. And when people would ignore me or say no or just say fuck off, it's just like, oh, it breaks your heart in a way I can't even tell you. It's just like, all right, I'm never doing that again. I'll just go steal and I'll sell it because that's more comfortable for me. Because people just make it so like, I don't know. So I think, yeah, give them money.
You mentioned that one of the hardest parts of being homeless for you was the stigma. And one of the major stigmas about homelessness is that all homeless people are addicts. You were in these encampments, you knew a lot of other homeless people. In your experience, is that stereotype true?
For the most part, yeah. I would say 90% of homeless people are addicts. The other 10% are just severely mentally ill.
What do you think the solution for that is?
I don't know. I do know that the solution right now that they're working on from the streets, this is what would happen. So you would get picked up from one of your encampments and you would either go to a tiny home, which is like little homes that they have, which is like a homeless shelter, or a motel, or like a shelter place. But you would get like a permanent spot there. It wasn't like you had to wait in line every day. So you get a permanent spot there. You're there for 6 to 8 months to a year, and then they give you an apartment. And the apartment they generally give you is in an apartment building, and it's all other homeless addicts in there. And the rent is like $27 to like $20. And sometimes people can't even afford that, because I think that the mistake that they're making is they're not implementing any job skills, any interview skills, any life skills. So people go to these apartments. I've been to the buildings. They're bringing their recycling in there. They're still using. They're still stealing. They're still doing everything they have to do to get their money. They're not changing their lives at all. So when their lease is up, they just end up back on the streets. I know a girl that was on the streets, went to the tiny homes, got an apartment, lease ran out, went back to the streets, back in the tiny homes. Like, there's no type of, like, it's just a Band-Aid for a bullet hole. Just putting them inside doesn't matter. They need to change their lives. And I don't know if necessarily sobriety should be a requirement, because then no one's going to sign up for it. Everyone would rather be on the streets using. But maybe like I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know. But I know that needs to be implemented for sure, because they're just living the same lives with a roof over their head.
The cycle continues.
Oh, totally.
Mm-hmm. You also have mentioned losing your teeth. That, to me, sounds like one of the most horrific things you could go through. Like, it sounds so incredibly painful and uncomfortable. At what point? But we also know it's a very common side effect of heavy drug use.
Yeah, it was because of the meth, but that made my teeth really weak. But the front four actually got knocked out by a girl. She was wearing the brass knuckles, and she knocked them out. And so those front four, like, if you look at a picture of me, I don't have any photos of me from when I was homeless, but I have the Software Underbelly interview, and there's this one screen grab that I did, and like the front one's broken. This one is just broken, and the rest of them are. So when they got knocked out, I got knocked out for a couple seconds. I woke up, my nose was gushing blood, and I spit out like pieces of my teeth. And after that happened, I was like, fuck it. I really stopped caring about my oral hygiene. It's not the easiest thing in the world to have hygiene when you're homeless anyways, but after that happened, so then the rest of them did start falling out. And that doesn't happen to every drug addict. Not every drug addict that doesn't have teeth, they've been knocked out. Most of them decay because of meth, or it's mostly meth. But yeah, they decay out. And that, like, when you're on the streets and you don't have teeth, it's not really, I mean, yeah, your self-confidence is low, but it's not that big of a deal because no one has teeth. It's like you walk, like, no one really has teeth. So it's not like people are really even judging you. But I can't imagine, like, when I went to rehab and I didn't have teeth, that's when I was like, oh, this is not cute. This sucks. This fucking sucks. It's the worst feeling. So getting this surgery was life-changing.
For you to be able to get the surgery, I'm assuming it's dental implants, is it?
Yeah, it's called an all-on-4.
For you to get that, was there a requirement of a certain time period of sobriety, or what did getting that surgery look like?
So I went to rehab in Arizona. I'm from California. My parents decided to send me to Wickenburg, Arizona, because it's in the middle of nowhere. And we drove there, and I got there, and I started. So when I wasn't on fentanyl, I started having a lot of pain. I got sober in jail, and I was in a lot of pain. And then I got out, and then I was in the rehab, and I was in so much pain. I was like, I need to go to the dentist. I don't know what they can do for me, but I need to go. I'm in so much pain because I'm not like, when you're on fentanyl, you feel no pain ever. So it's like really manageable. So then I went to the dentist in Wickenburg, a doctor named Dr. Savino, and he takes the scans of my teeth, and he looks at me and he goes, yeah, I'm not going to be able to restore any of your teeth. And I was like, all right, like, obviously. All right, I get it. So what's the next step? And he's like, well, I'm going to send you to an oral surgeon called Dr. Bradley Hammond, who works in Surprise, Arizona. So then I went to the oral surgeon, and he looked at my teeth, and he was like, we can do something called an all-on-4, which is basically you come in the morning, we rip out all your teeth, and we put in brand new teeth in one day. And then those are the temporaries, and then you get the trines. And then these teeth, I just got my permanents last Wednesday. So now I don't have to go back. But it took like 9 months for the whole process. The only requirement for it was the check. I mean, it's very expensive. It's a very expensive surgery. So after he told me, I'm going to take very good care of you, blah, blah, blah. Like, he was so great. And I went to the finance lady, and she told me the amount. And she's like, she didn't even say it. She wrote it down, and she like passed it to me. I felt like I was in a movie, and it said $62K. And I was like, is there any like wiggle room on this number? And she's like, oh no, we don't negotiate our all on fours. And I was like, okay, all right, well, okay, let me call my dad before I make this appointment. So then I went back to the rehab and I called my dad and I was like, Dad, this is the amount. And he was like, okay, Sammy, we can do it. Because I know how important it is for you to, he's like, I want you to wake up and leave that drug addict behind and wake up feeling beautiful and feeling confident and loving yourself and blah, blah, blah. And it did exactly that. I mean, it worked even better than he had hoped. Like, I remember the first time when I woke up from the surgery, I was all fucked up from the drugs, but I remember looking in the mirror, seeing my teeth, and I started crying. Like, it was life-changing. It was the best thing ever.
Were you scared to get the surgery because of the need for the drugs setting you off with your addiction?
So they put me on propofol because they had to put me under. And no, I wasn't scared of that. But then when I got off, I went back to the rehab and they didn't have, he prescribed me like Vicodin or Percocet or something. And they didn't give me that when I went back to the rehab because they were like, oh, we don't know, blah, blah, blah. So they gave me something called Subutex, which is like a it's kind of it's just a non-addictive or something form of whatever. And it worked like a fucking charm. So I did it. That's why I did it in the rehab. Is because my dad was like, Sammy, just do it when you get back to California or blah, blah. I'm like, no, Dad, I want to do it in rehab. I remember because at this point I was like, I want to be sober. Like, I want to be sober. I want to get these new teeth. Like, I had been there for like a month already. And I was like, I really want this. So I was like, no, Dad, I don't want to do it at home because if they give me pills, at that time, I had 30 days sober. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to want to take them, or I could totally manipulate Mom into giving me, like, I want to do it here so that they have to administer it to me. And they didn't end up giving me the Percocet, but they gave me something that totally helped. But that's why I wanted to do it in the rehab. So yeah, I guess I was a little bit worried about it.
That's a lot of self-awareness to know that, like, I need to do it while I'm in a controlled environment to keep myself sober and safe.
Yeah, I've been around for a long time doing shit like that. Like going to the hospital just to get Dilaudid or whatever, just like anything I could do.
You hear that for somebody to get sober, they have to want to get sober. And I just heard you say that in this last experience when you were getting your teeth, is that you finally were like, I want to be sober, not because other people want this for me, but because I want this for me. When and how did that shift finally happen for you?
So it happened when, so my last day on the streets, I had gotten arrested and put in handcuffs for petty theft. And when I get put in handcuffs, I tell the cops, oh, I swallowed fentanyl. I have to go to the hospital. Because 9 times out of 10, they'll send you to the hospital with a citation and you just go to the hospital and you can leave the hospital. They won't come with you to the hospital because the observing time is like 12 hours. They don't have time to wait for a petty thief. So I did that. I went to the hospital. I walked out of the hospital and I went to another store and I boosted from that store. So then I got arrested again, like 2 hours later in the same town. So I still had my hospital bracelet on and the cops were like, oh, you're the girl that just went to the hospital, blah, 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 we're taking you. And I was like, no, I have to go back to the hospital. They're like, no, you don't. We're taking you to county. We get your game now. So they took me to county jail and I was in jail for like a month. And the whole time I was in jail, I was sober. I detoxed in jail. It was awful, whatever. The whole time I was in jail, all I wanted to do was get high. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't care about seeing my family. I didn't care about like getting sober. I wasn't thinking about my future. I was just like, I want to get high. 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 I just need to get out of here so I can get high. So then when I got out, my dad was waiting for me at the courthouse and he was like, Sammy, we're going to get you drugs I know I told this, but we're going to get you drugs on the way because we know that's what you like to do. So I got to get high one more time. So then when I went to the rehab, I remember I was on my way there. I smoked so much dope. I was so fucked up. And then I got there and I remember being like, okay, well, I can leave here if I don't want to be here. Like, it's not just because it's in Wickenburg, Arizona, that's not going to stop me. Like, I can walk out. It's not a lockdown facility. I can leave. And I remember sleeping in the bed for the first night, like a comfortable bed, not a jail bed, not on the sidewalk, a jail bed, if you can call it that. I slept in a bed. I took a shower. I had lice in my hair too because I got lice in jail.
Oh, God.
So I had lice in my hair. So they gave me my own room because of that. I got my own room. And I was sleeping in a bed and I took a hot shower and then I started meeting all of these like normal people. like not homeless people, not gangsters, not drug addicts, you know, like people are there for trauma and stuff and they're just like normal. They were playing pickleball, they were eating good food, they were just like talking about their families and their lives and their homes. And I'm like, and then I remember I called my little brother and I was like, Mackin, or no, I called my dad. And this was the moment when I was like, so I started loving it there. I started really loving the rehab. I was like, this is awesome. I think I want to be sober. I talked to my niece for the first time. She was 2. I had never met her. And I remember calling my dad and I left him a voicemail. And I was like, Dad, I love it here so much. This is amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. Because he had sent me to rehab millions of times, but I've never appreciated it like I did then. Because of the bottom that I hit, being homeless for 5 years, you just have a different perspective and a gratitude for life and an appreciation for things that you might not have before. At least I didn't. I was a spoiled brat. And then I became homeless and now I feel like I'm a totally different person. So I remember calling him and leaving him that voicemail. And he said, I called him back. He's like, Sammy, listening to that voicemail was the best thing that's happened to me in 15 years. I cried. I love you, blah, blah, blah. And that was just like, I was like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. Like I want to be sober.
I can only imagine how good that shower and sleep felt because when I think of just like
God.
going camping for a week, when I get home, I'm like, oh, this is the best shower. I feel so gross. Or if I've been like sick, bed rotting with the flu and I haven't showered because I've been so sick, I take that shower and you just feel like $1,000,000. But having been on the streets for 5 years, like what did day-to-day hygiene look like on the streets? What was your access to toileting and showering and brushing your teeth?
So there was no access to it. There was no access to it. I mean, I had like wet wipes that I would carry in my backpack. I would just go to the bathroom anywhere that I could, behind a dumpster in an alley, on the sidewalk. I mean, if I had to go to the bathroom, I would go. Like there was no, I mean, I don't even remember at first if that was weird because it's been so long. Like that was just normal. I would just go to the bathroom anywhere I could. And and then I would only shower. So the way I would shower, like once every 3 months or something, I would take like a gallon thing of water I would steal from the store. I would put it over my head and I would wash my hair with shampoo and conditioner. And that was like very rare that I would do that. But the only time it was really ever like a problem is I started smoking this dope called Xylazine or trank dope on the street. And what it does is it eats away at your flesh. So I have a huge scar on my leg from here down, from my knee down, because I started smoking that dope. I didn't realize it was in my dope. And my flesh started falling off and I couldn't keep it clean because I was on the streets. I mean, your fingernails are always dirty. You're always filthy. So I couldn't keep it clean. So I like was in a dangerous zone of losing my leg. And I went to the hospital and they don't treat you very nice at the hospital when you're homeless. So I didn't get to be seen or they sent me away with antibiotics or something very minor. I needed to be admitted. And then I called my dad, and my dad was a medical malpractice attorney for like 40 years. So he called the hospital or he showed up at the hospital or something, and then they got me in and they saved my leg. They gave me vancomycin for like 6 days and an IV in my neck. And I remember my dad coming to the hospital and being like, Sammy, don't leave this hospital. You better not leave. And then I ended up leaving like 2 days in, and then I had to come back because I just couldn't keep it clean.
What was your relationship to your siblings throughout this? Because I believe from watching some of your content that they were not addicts. They didn't do drugs.
No, they're not addicts. My sister was an alcoholic, but she got sober like 8 years ago. Never drugs. And my brother, no. It was pretty much non-existent when I was homeless. My whole relationship with my whole family was non-existent. I didn't have a phone. You can't keep a phone when you're homeless. It either gets stolen and you can't charge it when you do have it. So I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have anything to keep in contact with them. Like once in a while, I would use someone's phone to text my brother and ask him for money. And bless his heart, he would always send it to me. But other than that, it was non-existent. And then when I got sober, I remember calling them from the rehab being like, I'm so sorry. I love you guys. And they're like, we're just so happy that you're in there. And we're so proud of you. And now we're closer than ever.
What was the scariest moment for you during that period of your life? Like, what was the day or the moment where you were like really terrified? Because surely living on the streets.
I mean, there's so many moments that are going through my head right now. being held at gunpoint, being held at knife point, witnessing the mass shooting in MacArthur Park, my boyfriend getting attacked by a pit bull. That was pretty traumatizing. Just watching people get the shit beat out of them by other gang members, or my friend had like a really, really gnarly infection on his leg and he had maggots on his leg and I had to clean the maggots off of his leg, and that was really traumatizing. Just like a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. The scariest probably, or the story that I will tell, is about the mass shooting in MacArthur Park. That was traumatizing. But after it happened, I never talked about it. It wasn't like it like haunts me. Like, so we were there, we were in front of Yoshinoya, we were on the ground, it was the middle of the night, and when MacArthur Park at night, all the vendors are gone, so all the junkies kind of just hang out on the sidewalk and just do dope and whatever. You're kind of celebrating the day, like the day's over, right? So we're sitting there, and two guys masked up come up and they just start opening fire. And I saw someone get shot in the mouth. I saw someone get shot in the foot. And I fell to the ground and I froze. And I just remember seeing and smelling all the blood. And my boyfriend, who was like 130 pounds, picked me up, put me over his shoulder and ran to the train. And we got on the train. And luckily the train was still running because it was just about to stop. And we got on the train and I remember he just said to me like, "Oh my God, I was like a mom that picked it up a van off a child," like lifting me. I was like, "Fuck you." Like, and then that's the only thing we said about it. That's all we talked about. We just kind of laughed about it. And then we got back to like the valley and we kind of told our friends what happened. And then the next day we went to the park and it was all fenced off and it was like totally different vibe down there. But that was a lot, witnessing that.
Do you think because you were so used to seeing so many horrific things and because you were so self-medicated, none of it really fully impacted you the way it would have if you were sober and not living that life?
Yeah, definitely. I became a little bit numb to it, for sure.
When you were getting sober this last time and you start to see all of these lived experiences through a clean lens, is it a lot to unpack? Like, it feels like it must be so much to untangle and come to grips with in your sober brain.
I don't know, because when I talk about it, like I was in therapy when I went to rehab and I would talk about it and they were like, "You're talking about it as if it's like a third party, like you didn't experience it." I'm like, well, I just don't feel like, I mean, looking at it objectively, like I can see that it's a lot and I can see that it's traumatic and I can see that maybe it might manifest later on in my life as like anxiety or depression or whatever. But right now, it's still so fresh. I only have like 10 months sober. So it's not that long ago that all of this stuff happened. Like, it's not, I just don't find it as traumatic as some people. Even as a sober person, looking back on it, I'm like, oh, well, it happened. I dealt with it. I'm fine.
What have these 10 months of sobriety looked like for you? What has been rebuilding your life?
Oh my God, they've been amazing. So I got out of rehab. I went there for 75 days. It's a 45-day program. I stayed for 75. And then I moved in with a friend that I met in the rehab. And I met my boyfriend, Edwin, and we started dating. And then that friend relapsed. And so I had to move out. And I moved in with my boyfriend, even though we'd only been dating for a month. And I went to IOP. Met my sponsor. I started working the steps of AA. I got a dog, a husky. I met my niece for the first time. She was like 2.5 when I met her, and I just love her so much. My sister had another baby a couple weeks ago. I got to experience that. I got to be there for my brother. He went through a breakup. I got to talk him through that. He calls me all the time. I got to, see my dad start his new business. I got to really be there for my mom. My mom went to rehab a couple months before I went to rehab. So we got to kind of do it together. I got to experience Christmas at home for the first time in 5 years. That was amazing. Thanksgiving, my birthday, New Year's Eve with my boyfriend, just like a bunch of amazing stuff. Just normal stuff that people might not find like that exciting. But for me, it's all like new. It's all great. And I'm like so appreciative and so grateful for it.
One thing I've heard about getting sober is that because drugs mess with like your dopamine receptors and your serotonin levels so much that what is joy sober is different than it used to be. Is that true in your experience?
Not for me. Not for me. No, not for me, because I didn't just have like a light habit that I mean, I could see that being true. Like your dopamine, you need a lot bigger of a rush of dopamine to experience joy, but not for me, because I think because my low was so low, it was so horrific that now everything, like my boyfriend will get me a cup of coffee and I'm like, oh my God, that's so nice. Like you're the best thing ever. Like, thank you. Like I'm just so grateful for every little thing because of the experience. I don't know about the dopamine or like, I could see that being true, but not for me. No.
I could imagine just like the smell of clean laundry and like putting on a fresh pair of clothes would just be like, this is
even my socks and shoes, like being able to take off my socks and shoes and walk around the house barefoot is like amazing, because I didn't take my socks and shoes off for like 5 years. I would take them off to change them into new ones, but you can't walk around barefoot on the streets. So like even just doing that is like the best thing ever. Watching TV, I didn't get to watch TV. Laying inside and enjoying the rain, that's another thing. Like just
enjoying the rain inside is far different than being outside in the rain.
It's miserable outside. It's miserable. I fucking hate it.
I want to ask, how as a woman do you deal with having your cycle on the streets?
That's a good question. So I was on opiates, so I didn't get it.
Interesting.
I didn't get it. But I knew friends that were pregnant on the street. They were pregnant. Just like go steal tampons, or you can go to Skid Row and get them or whatever. And then, I don't know, just like peeing on the street, just would go change it. I don't know. I never got it. I didn't have my period for anytime I would go into jail, I would get it. But once I would get out, I would not have it anymore because I would be back on the dope.
When you were in jail, did it feel like, oh, it's nice to be like indoors and get meals, or were you like, I just want to be back on the streets?
No. Everyone always says that has never been homeless or been to jail says, oh, if I was on the streets, I would love to be in jail. You get 3 meals and you get a bed. Fuck that. No, you don't have your freedom. The meals are awful. They don't give you water. You drink water out of the sink and it's murky. So I don't drink water. I don't eat food. I lose so much weight when I go to jail. You don't have your freedom. You're bored as fuck. I would rather have my freedom than being inside in a place to sleep, because it's awful. No, I would pick streets over jail any day, any fucking day.
That's so interesting, because I've heard that exact rhetoric. That's why I asked. I've heard people say that. What does a meal in jail look like? Like, if it's so unedible, what is the meal?
It's disgusting. First of all, for breakfast, it's like generic Fruit Loops or whatever, like just like
off-brand,
awful cereal in a bag with a carton of milk, and then like hard-boiled eggs. And then lunch is like a bologna sandwich, and the bologna comes in a vacuum sealed bag. So I've never eaten anything in jail because it's so disgusting. Like, I'll just wait for my commissary to come in and I'll get like Cheetos and soda and whatever, because then I'll just live off that. And then I remember one night we had like hot dogs and like baked beans. Oh my God, just thinking about it is so gross. The only thing that I would like in jail when I would go is at lunchtime you get an orange juice, and it comes in a carton. And it's terrible orange juice, but at the time, it's so good, because all you want when you're in jail is flavor. That's all you care about. You just want flavor, candy, Gatorade, Monster, anything. Like the first time I got out of county jail, I remember I went to a gas station. I swore, I'm not going to steal ever again. I never want to go back to county jail. I was released in Glendale in a black paper suit from court, and I went to a gas station. First thing I did was steal a Monster, because I just wanted the flavor. And I took 2 sips of it, and it was too much because I hadn't drinking anything in a week. But the orange juice was like the one thing that I just died for. And I remember I would trade my food for orange juices. And I remember one time I wasn't leaving my cell because I was detoxing and I didn't want to leave. And they brought me my lunch and I didn't have an orange juice. And I remember pressing my emergency medical button, and the deputy came and she's like, what's your emergency? I'm like, I didn't get an orange juice. And she's like, that's not a medical emergency. I was like, it is a medical emergency. I need it right now.
It's the only thing I'm going to consume.
I need it. Like,
You mentioned that when you were on the streets, you had a boyfriend with you
Mm-hmm.
who was also an addict.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine with dating, you want somebody who understands your lived experience. So it feels easy to date another person who struggled with addiction. But at the same time, there's a cycle of if one goes down, will the other go down?
Yes.
What did that cycle look like for you, and when did you decide to finally break that cycle?
So every time I would relapse, or I've always dated addicts. Until now, I'm dating a normie. I would always date addicts. Where am I supposed to meet someone? At an AA meeting or in rehab? Like, that's it. So I would date addicts, and any time without fail. And there is the possibility of one of you relapsing and the other one being like, no, like, let's bring you up. But that rarely ever happens. It's usually they take you down with you because it's like a jealousy thing. You want to be, you see them high, you're like, I want to be high too. So every single time that I would relapse or my boyfriend would relapse, we would both relapse and we would go down so much faster. When I broke that cycle is when I was in rehab this last time. Brian got arrested he got arrested a couple days after I got arrested. I didn't know that because I was in jail. I went to rehab, and then I get a phone call from my dealer on the streets being like, guess who's out? And I'm like, Brian? I'm like, yeah. And so I talked to him. I was like, hey, he was sober. He was not stealing. He was doing okay for a little bit. He was homeless still, but he was doing okay. And I just remember being like, oh my God, that's so great. Like, I'm so proud of him. And then I was like, call me every day. Here, you have the numbers. Call me every day. I haven't talked to him since that day. He never called me back. And then I heard from my friends on the streets that he's using again, whatever. And then I remember being like, you know what? I'm just done. I can't. I I never technically broke up with him, but I made it in my head. I'm like, no, I just can't. Like, he's using and I'm not, and it's just not going to work. And then he got arrested again and he did like 6 months in jail. And then my friends went to go visit him in jail. And I guess he was under the impression that I was still his girlfriend. And he was really upset with me and mad at me and whatever. And I was like, I remember talking to my sponsor. I was like, do you think I owe him a conversation? Or like, I think it's pretty clear we haven't spoken in 6-7 months. And like, he blew me off to get high. Not that I took that personally or anything. I understand it. But like, I'm in love with someone now. I have a boyfriend who's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Like, and she's like, no. She's like, I wouldn't. She's like, it's just, how would that help? So I never did. And now I have no idea where he is.
What do you want people to know or understand about addiction and homelessness that they might not?
Okay, about addiction, I mean, we already covered it a little bit, but I just want to like reiterate that it can affect everybody and anybody. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank account. It can affect you. And then homelessness can also happen to anyone. It's more rare, but homelessness it's not what it seems to be. And all homeless people are not violent. They're not crazy. They're just suffering. They're sick and they don't want to be there. It's not like it's a lifestyle choice. They're there under circumstances and they're forced to be there. And then also, like, if a homeless person comes up to you and asks you for anything, even if you don't have it, just be kind and like look them in the eye. And even like asking, like, if anyone ever asked me on the streets, like looked me in the eye and said, like, how are you doing? Oh my God, that would have made my whole life. Like, that would have made me so happy.
What would you say to other people who are currently struggling with addiction?
If you're currently struggling with addiction, you will get better when it hurts bad enough. Like, when you are low enough, you will choose to change your life. That's all I can say about that.
With every episode, I ask the awkward question, which is a question people might want to know but feel like they shouldn't ask.
Okay.
I want to ask you, are you scared that you're going to relapse again?
I am scared of relapsing 100%. I'm scared of relapsing. I'm not scared that I'm going to relapse because I have such good recovery. I have such a good life. I'm so happy. And like, the low point that I was at was so, like, everyone always asks me, what's different about this time? What's different about this time? I think the difference is I'm happy. I'm in a great relationship. I have a great relationship with my family. I live a very comfortable, happy, amazing life. But the low point that I was at, like my bottom, they call it, like my physical bottom was so low it was so awful that to go back, and if I would relapse, I would go back there in a heartbeat. It's not like you pick up where you left off when you relapse. So I would be homeless again in a heartbeat. It's not like I would not be there. And I'm so scared I'm more scared of going back to homelessness than I am of relapsing, so yes, I'm scared of relapsing because if I relapse, I don't know if I'll be able to come back to sobriety. I mean, maybe, but I always say, like, I always have another relapse in me. I don't know if I always have another recovery left in me. But I'm confident in my sobriety. I'm very confident in it.
I watched the episode you did on cold white underbelly.
Soft white underbelly.
Thank you. So I was like, so I said there was wrong. Soft white underbelly. And you were actively homeless at the time and on drugs. And in that video, you said that you knew this wasn't you. This wasn't the life you were going to live forever. And that you were going to get sober and help other women. What are you going to do to help other women?
I don't know yet. I don't know if I can. I mean, I'm sure I have the capability to do it on a big scale. But right now, I'm just doing it like one person at a time. Like, I'll go to meetings, I'll speak at meetings, I'll, call my alcoholic friends, I'll talk to them. Like, I have a TikTok, I share about it on TikTok, and I get so many messages every day like, oh my God, you're helping me so much, you're inspiring me so much. Some girl commented on a video and said, I gave a homeless person money the other day because of you. And I was like, hell yeah. Like, if that's the only thing that I'm doing to help the world, like, I'll take it.
And I think it is. Like, every video you post, every time you sit down and have a conversation like this, we don't know how we're impacting people or who we're impacting specifically, but I know that you are. Like, these conversations and the videos that you share are so important. They're so raw and so real and so vulnerable and honest. And that's what drew me to you, and that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I appreciated how candid you were. You never sugarcoat anything. You're just like, this is what it is. This is who I am.
Yeah, I'm pretty shameless about it.
But it's important. We have to break the shame, right?
Yeah.
Shame doesn't help anybody.
It doesn't.
I asked you at the start of this conversation, who is Sammy Carroll?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to end by asking you, what is it really like to be Sammy Carroll? It's
amazing. I love my life. I love myself. And like I said in the end of my Soft White Underbelly interview, if I haven't, and I was still in it, which is crazy that I even said that I was like that aware that I said this. But like, if I didn't go through all of my experiences and suffer the way that I suffered, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. And I love the person I am today. I have such a good perspective on life. I have so much gratitude. I'm so positive. Like, anything can happen to me and I'm like, it's no big deal. Like, I was homeless on the streets of Skid Row in LA. Like, I can handle it, And so I'm very happy. I love being Sammy Carroll. It's the best.
That makes me very happy to hear, to come through the other side of a really hard 15 years of your life.
Yeah.
And be in a place where you can look back at it and see the lessons and not just the pain, and be the person you are today. I look back at all the hardships and pain I went through, and my God, I would never want to do it again.
Me neither. Yeah, no, me neither.
But I'm also like, thank God I did, because this is why I have the compassion I do, and the strength that I do, and the empathy I do, and the hope that I have. And every time I go through something hard, I just think, I've been through harder. Like, I can do this because I've done it.
Right. And
knowing that and having that resilience is a gift. So thank you for being here and for being willing to share your story, and for sharing it on TikTok. I hope you continue to post. And I know that I am a stranger who means nothing, but I'm very proud of you.
Thank you so much. No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Because I can't imagine how hard it's been. So you should be very proud of yourself.
I am. Thank you.
Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. And now you know what it's really like.